Rock bottom has no warning. There are people who fail once and quit forever, and there are people who fail so completely that quitting is no longer an option. This story is about the second kind. Not a hero, not a prodigy, not someone born special, just a regular man who lost control of his own life. Before he became a CEO, before he wore suits, before people listened to him, he was invisible. And worse than invisible, he was a problem. He grew up in a normal American neighborhood. Nothing dramatic, nothing inspiring, no silver spoon, no tragedy that makes headlines, just average. As a teenager, he wanted the same thing many people want: to belong, to feel powerful, to feel important. The first time drugs entered his life, it didn't feel dangerous, it felt relieving. For the first time, the noise inside his head went quiet. Fear softened, insecurity faded, confidence appeared. Not real confidence, borrowed confidence. But at that age, he couldn't tell the difference. At first, it was occasional, weekends, parties, friends, then it became routine, and then it became necessary. By his early 20s, drugs were no longer something he used. They were something he needed just to feel normal. Money became a problem, so he found a solution that felt logical at the time. If drugs cost money, sell drugs. At first, it was small, helping a friend, moving product. He told himself it was temporary. It never is. Soon, his phone never stopped ringing. People depended on him. For the first time, he felt needed, respected, feared, relevant. But the lifestyle has a price. Paranoia replaced peace. Sleep disappeared. Trust evaporated. Every knock at the door felt like the end. Eventually, the end arrived. He was arrested. No movie moment, no dramatic speech, just handcuffs, cold metal, a silent ride. Prison is not what people imagine. It is boredom mixed with tension, regret mixed with anger. Time moves slowly, but consequences move fast. Inside those walls, nobody cares about your excuses. Nobody cares about your past. You are what you did. He lost everything. Friends vanished. Family distanced themselves. Opportunities evaporated. When he was released, freedom felt heavier than prison. No job, no trust, a record that followed him everywhere. Doors closed before he could knock. Rejection became routine. And this is where most stories end. But this is where his actually begins, because rock bottom doesn't feel dramatic. It feels quiet. It feels like waking up every morning knowing nobody is coming to save you, and realizing something uncomfortable. If your life is going to change, it will not be because someone believes in you. It will be because you decide to become someone worth believing in. At first, he tried shortcuts. They failed. Old habits whispered to him daily. Relapse waited patiently, and sometimes relapse won. More than once, he fell back into addiction. More than once, he disappointed himself again. Each failure hurt more than the last, because now he knew better. One night, sitting alone, broke, ashamed, exhausted, he asked himself a question that changed everything. What if I stopped trying to fix my life all at once? What if I just win today? Not tomorrow, not next year, just today. He started small. Wake up early. No drugs today. Apply for one job. Read one page. Exercise for 10 minutes. No motivation, no inspiration, discipline. Days became weeks. Weeks became months. Slowly, something unfamiliar appeared. Self-respect, not pride, not confidence, respect. He began working entry-level jobs that nobody wanted. Cleaning, manual labor, long hours. He listened more than he spoke. He learned how systems worked, how businesses actually ran, where money really came from. Years later, he noticed something. Most people fail not because they are stupid. They fail because they repeat the same emotional decisions under stress. He learned to pause, to respond instead of react. Eventually, he saw a gap in the market, a problem people complained about but never solved. He didn't jump immediately. He waited, he prepared, he saved. Then he started small. The first version failed, the second version barely survived. The third version worked, not perfectly, but enough. That small company grew, slowly, until one day, someone called him the CEO. And it felt unreal, not because of the title, but because of the distance between who he was and who he had become. And this is where part one ends, not with success, but with direction. The past does not stay quiet. The hardest part of rebuilding a life is not the work, it's the past. The past doesn't disappear just because you change. It waits, it watches, and it reminds you who you used to be when you were most tired. Even as his routine improved, the weight followed him. Every job application carried the same invisible sentence: this man cannot be trusted. Some interviews ended the moment his background check appeared. Others ended politely. "We'll call you." They never did. At night, old thoughts returned. "You already ruined everything. You'll never catch up. One mistake and you're back where you started." Fear became his constant companion. Not fear of failing, fear of succeeding and losing it all again. Because failure was familiar, predictable. Success was fragile. He noticed something uncomfortable. The people around him had safety nets, parents, savings, second chances. He had none. If he fell again, there would be no comeback story. That pressure did two things. It nearly broke him, and it sharpened him. He stopped chasing fast results. He stopped trying to look successful. Instead, he focused on becoming useful. At work, he volunteered for tasks nobody wanted. Late shifts, messy problems, unclear responsibilities. He learned how operations actually worked, where companies lost money, where inefficiency hid, where ego destroyed teams. He stayed quiet, listened, observed. People underestimated him. They assumed his silence meant weakness. It didn't. It meant patience. The cravings never fully disappeared. Some days were easier than others. Some nights felt endless. There were moments he sat alone, staring at his phone, knowing exactly who to call to disappear again. He didn't call, not because he was strong, but because he was tired of starting over. He began journaling. Not motivational quotes, not dreams, facts. What went wrong today? What emotions showed up? What triggered them? Patterns emerged. Stress led to impulsive thinking. Impulsive thinking led to destructive choices. So he attacked stress, not temptation. Sleep became non-negotiable. Exercise became routine. Alcohol disappeared, not for discipline, for survival. Months turned into years. Slowly people noticed. Not his story, his consistency. Someone trusted him with responsibility, then with a team, then with a decision that mattered. He did not celebrate. He prepared because deep down he still believed disaster was coming. Then life tested him. A major mistake happened at work. Not illegal, not catastrophic, but expensive. The old version of him would have hidden, lied, shifted blame. This time he owned it, fully. No excuses, no explanations, just responsibility. That moment changed how others saw him, and more importantly, how he saw himself. He realized something critical. Trust is not built by perfection, it is built by accountability. Around this time, the business idea returned, not as excitement, as a quiet thought, a service he wished existed when he was struggling. Something simple, something honest, something scalable. He ran numbers obsessively, worst-case scenarios, failure points, cash flow risks. Fear made him thorough. When he finally launched, nobody noticed. No press, no praise, just customers slowly appearing. He reinvested everything. No lifestyle upgrade, no celebration, because he knew something most people don't. Success feels dangerous when you've lost everything before. Then came the phone call, an old contact, someone from his past. They wanted to reconnect. That night, he didn't sleep. Because the past doesn't knock politely. It tempts, it reminds, it promises relief. He declined, not angrily, not dramatically, quietly. That decision mattered more than any business win. Because it proved something to himself. He was no longer running, he was choosing. And this is where part 2 ends. Not with victory, but with separation between who he was and who he refused to become again. When everything almost collapses again, people assume the hardest part is getting out of the hole. It isn't. The hardest part is staying out. When the business started to grow, new problems arrived quietly. More customers meant more responsibility. More responsibility meant more pressure. More pressure meant less room for mistakes. And he had no tolerance for mistakes. Not because he was a perfectionist, because mistakes had consequences he could not afford. Cash flow became unstable. Some clients paid late. Others disappeared without warning. One bad month could erase years of effort. He stopped sleeping, not from excitement, from calculation. Every night, he replayed scenarios. What if revenue drops? What if a key client leaves? What if I misjudge this hire? The fear was constant, but this fear was different from addiction. Addiction numbs fear. Responsibility amplifies it. For the first time, people depended on him. Employees, partners, customers. If he failed now, it wouldn't just be his life collapsing, it would be theirs. That weight changed how he thought. He became painfully conservative. No unnecessary spending, no emotional decisions, no shortcuts. Growth slowed. Some advisors told him he was playing too safe. They didn't understand. He wasn't protecting profits, he was protecting identity. because deep inside the old version of him was still alive, waiting. Stress revealed cracks. One night, after a brutal week, the thought returned, just once, just to take the edge off. He didn't move. He sat with it, and that was new. Before he reacted immediately, now he observed. He realized something unsettling. The urge wasn't about drugs, it was about escape. Escape from responsibility, escape from expectations, escape from becoming someone permanent. He went for a walk instead. Cold air, empty streets, no phone, no distractions, just the weight of everything he had built and everything he could lose. That night, he made a decision. Not about business, about rules, personal rules. No decisions when exhausted. No commitments when emotional. No reacting to fear. If something mattered, it waited 24 hours. That rule saved him more times than he can count. The business hit its first real crisis shortly after. A major partner pulled out. No warning, no explanation. Revenue dropped sharply, panic spread. Employees looked at him for answers he didn't have yet. Inside, he felt the old familiar sensation. Collapse. But he didn't show it. He spoke slowly, clearly, honestly. "We're going to survive this," he said, not confidently, truthfully. They cut costs, renegotiated contracts. He worked alongside his team. No hierarchy, no distance. That mattered. People don't follow titles during crisis. They follow behavior. The company stabilized, barely, but something changed. He realized he could face pressure without self-destruction. That was new. That was power. Years passed. The business matured. Systems replaced chaos. He hired people better than him. That was intentional. He didn't need to be the smartest person in the room anymore. He needed to be the most stable. Eventually, the company reached a size that attracted attention. Investors called. Media reached out. Old acquaintances resurfaced. Some with congratulations, some with curiosity, some with agendas. He stayed cautious, because attention can be more dangerous than failure. One interview asked him about his past, directly. He didn't deny it. He didn't glorify it. He stated facts. "I made choices that destroyed my life. Then I chose differently." No redemption arc, no drama, just truth. That honesty resonated. People trusted him, not because he was clean, but because he was consistent. And that is where part 3 ends, with stability, not comfort, because comfort was never the goal. Control was. What success really means after rock bottom. People often ask him the same question. How does it feel to make it? He never answers immediately, because the word "make it" means something very different to someone who has lost everything. Success did not arrive as happiness. It arrived as quiet. Bills paid on time, employees getting their salaries, no phone calls he was afraid to answer. Peace. That was the reward. He stopped chasing growth for validation. He grew only when systems were ready, only when people were protected, only when failure would not destroy lives. That mindset confused some investors. They wanted speed, scale, aggression. He wanted durability, because he understood something they didn't. Fast growth hides weak foundations, and weak foundations collapse under pressure. He also understood people, especially broken people. He hired carefully, not based on perfect resumes, based on patterns. How someone responded to failure, how they handled boredom, how they treated others when nobody was watching. He avoided charisma. Charisma often masks instability. He preferred calm. Because calm people don't panic when things go wrong. As the company expanded, his role changed. He stopped solving problems directly. He started building environments where problems could be solved without him. That was difficult. Control is comforting to people who once had none. Letting go felt dangerous, but he forced himself, because leadership is not about importance, it's about replaceability. His past still existed. It always would. He didn't try to erase it. He integrated it. When speaking to younger teams, he never glamorized his mistakes. He spoke about boredom, loneliness, the slow erosion of self-respect. He told them the truth. Rock bottom is not dramatic. It's repetitive. It's waking up knowing exactly how the day will go and hating yourself for it. He emphasized something most motivational speakers avoid. Change does not come from believing in yourself. It comes from distrusting the version of yourself that keeps making the same decisions. Discipline was not his personality. It was his boundary. He didn't trust motivation. Motivation disappears. He trusted systems, sleep, structure, rules created when calm. Those rules protected him when emotions returned, because they always do. He never claimed to be cured. He claimed to be aware. Awareness is quieter than confidence, but it lasts longer. One day, someone asked him if he ever missed his old life, the chaos, the intensity, the false sense of power. He paused, then answered honestly, "No, because that life was loud. This one is real." That sentence defined everything. Real success was waking up without needing escape. Real success was making decisions without fear of himself. Real success was knowing that even if everything disappeared tomorrow, he would not. He had rebuilt something permanent, not wealth, identity. And that is the part most people misunderstand. Money did not change his life. Responsibility did. Consistency did. Choosing the harder option when nobody was watching did. If there is one truth his life proves, it is this: you do not rise by becoming extraordinary. You rise by becoming reliable. Reliable to yourself, reliable to your word, reliable under pressure. People who have never hit bottom will never understand this. They chase confidence. People who have been there chase stability. And stability changes everything. This is where EP1 ends. Not with celebration, but with clarity. Because clarity is what keeps you from falling again.